We are also traveling and speaking in various places after New Zealand. 2 places in Sydney and a place in Perth. And we're very excited about this trip because in Sydney, we're going to speak to a non-SDA group, a meditative group. Yeah, and they don't know us and we don't know them. But we got connected because they came and listened to us speaking 7 times in Malaysia, and the Malaysian cousin of this person connected his Sydney cousin, and so that's how we got connected. Now, this subject is very engaging for people who are wanting to know how to engage others who may be in meditation. All right, but before we start, let us start with a brief introduction. I'm a layman. I'm an accountant. I've been retired for more than 20 years. And we started with health work, and I was meditating for 20 years, as you can see. I was a Zen meditator for 20 years, from when I was 18 years old to when I was 38. Okay? And then I became Christian. And then from 38, I became Christian, and then I'm chairman of Aenon, a residential lifestyle modification center in Malaysia. We've been doing that for 30 years now. And before COVID, we traveled and we spoke. But COVID interrupted all that. And something great came out of it. Because of COVID and because we were locked down, we began to teach prophecy. And that's how we are here to talk about 2 things, meditation and prophecy. Okay? I'll ask my wife to say a few things about herself. Okay, speak to this, see if they can capture it.
All right, my name is Roxana. Nice to be here with all of you. I've been teaching piano for 40 years, but I've recently retired so that we can teach full-time Bible prophecies because Jesus is really coming soon. Do you believe that? Yes, amen. And we're excited about our mission, our trips, our calling to work together as husband and wife so that more people will know about Christ's soon return and all the signs that are pointing to his coming so that we can all be ready and not be deceived. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll begin tonight with the first subject, part 1. Now, the reason I chose this picture, and you can see the implication, right? Jesus Christ and Buddha being one and together. And that's where Eastern meditation has tried to introduce itself into Christianity. Okay? And it's very surreptitious, very clever, because I was doing it for 20 years, and I got to feel that I was spiritually enlightened. But it was false until I discovered Jesus Christ. Now, how do they do that? How do they bring that into the mind? Meditation produces neurophenomena, feelings and thoughts in your brain. So it goes straight into your brain. How does it do it? But it does it with very simple things, which you may regard as harmless. For example, they try to get you to lose your sense of self, to bring you to a moment of realization into cosmic oneness, into nirvana, into Buddhahood, into the presence of God, by asking you to repeat a mantra. Now, if I ask you to repeat something, maybe even Christian, like Jesus, forgive me of my sins, something like repetitive, all right? It seems harmless. Or a mantra like in Chinese, like Ome Tofut, all right? And repeating something that is so simple, it seems harmless, but what does it do to your brain? And that's what I'm trying to offer to you. Simple things, seemingly harmless, affects your brain. I'm going to show you how it does that. Okay, so they lead you to feel your loss of sense of self, of cosmic oneness, of nirvana, and so forth. And in the 3 talks, I'm going to cover, tonight especially, neuroscience. What happens in your brain? On Sunday, it's the Eastern religious beliefs, how it works. And then all that leads to a global interfaith. Because the mind of everyone is common to everybody, and the sense of God, a false sense of God, seems to unite people. Okay? All right, so it's a relationship between the brain and then what we think, our mind. Now, we are wonderfully made. And this slide, remember this slide, because it tells us which part of our brain are so valuable. Let's read it together. It's from Dr. Jennings. He's a psychiatrist, US, and I worked with him on meditation because I needed someone who knows about the brain. I'm an accountant, okay? Just that I did meditation for 20 years doesn't qualify me for talking about the brain. So I worked with this man, and he told me, and we worked together, and what he defines is a special part of the frontal cortex called the anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC for short, is our neurological heart. When you feel things, emotion. It is here we experience love, compassion, empathy, sympathy, altruism, and the ACC is also the seat of the will, the place we choose right from wrong, the place you feel love, right from wrong, and your will. Now, this part of your brain cannot be deactivated, must not be deactivated, okay? So this is the valuable part of our brain. And I want to tell you about Dr. Beauregard, University of Montreal. He began to wonder which part of the brain lights up or gets activated, particularly when you fall in romantic love. So Dr. Beauregard is able, through functional MRI, new technology, to look at your brain as it works. Okay, so what he did was to put the girl in the machine and shows her a picture of the boy she loves. And the ACC fires out every time. And 2 other parts of the brain. So 3 parts fire, but the ACC definitely. Okay? Then Beauregard got curious. What about unconditional love? So how did he design the experiment to test unconditional love? Carers, people who care about others. And he chose carers who cared about others who may be dying, who may be destitute, may be poor, and can never repay back. They put the carer in the machine, show them the picture of the one they care for, and the ACC fires up, plus 6 other places. So the brain fires up like a Christmas tree, but definitely the ACC. So the ACC is the place where we have, well, compassionate love, unconditional love. Okay? Now, so scientists say the ACC plays a significant role in mediating cognitive influences on emotion, love. Now, the ACC is a wonderful place in the front of your brain, okay? Right out here. Now, if you should have anxiety and stress, if your boss works you hard, doesn't listen to you, wants that report, like my bosses wanted reports because I'm an accountant every week, and doesn't give you any help, you begin to be anxious, and then if it's long-term, you begin to be depressed. Now, what happens when you're depressed? The part of the brain over here, okay, is the amygdala, this part. It gets active, it works overtime, and you get depressed. But what did they find about the connection between the ACC and the amygdala? When the ACC fires up, the amygdala calms down. Your fear, your anxiety, your depression fades away. And so the scientist calls this the hope and optimism circuit. Now you can Google this. They are so excited about this hope and optimism circuit, so many scientists are researching it. Now that we understand how the brain works, we will begin to understand if these parts, particularly the ACC, if it is deactivated, we lack that empathy, that love. Okay? But how is it to be deactivated? In this case, it is deactivated by stress. Okay? Now, the relationship between the ACC and stress and ACC, love and ACC, okay? So what happens is like a seesaw. When your ACC is activated up there, like a seesaw. When the ACC is activated, your stress goes away. Your depression goes away. Okay? But it works the other way. When your stresses are up, your ACC is down. So you want a very strong ACC. You want a very strong hope and optimism circuit. Now, the scientist tells you this. Whatever fires together, wires together. When you fire your brain to do something, that circuitry gets stronger and stronger. Say I want to learn French. All right? I read French, I study French, I listen to French music, I write French. That neural circuit for language starts with being thin, and then as I work at it, it gets to be thick. So the scientists say what fires together as you fire those neural circuits, it becomes stronger and stronger. So what fires together, wires together. Now that works for everyone, whatever your age. Okay? So if we allow our stresses to be firing, our amygdala becomes strong. Okay? But if we fire the ACC often enough, our ACC becomes strong. And that hope and optimism circuit becomes stronger and stronger. Now, what they found was soldiers in the Middle East, police in the rough places, corners of New York City, their amygdala are swollen, bigger. What fires together, wires together. Okay? Now, how then do we strengthen the ACC and the hope and optimism circuit? So I gave you a visual of what fires together, wires together. The circuitry just becomes thicker and thicker for our benefit. Oh, I want to tell you about Aenon, okay? This is in Malaysia. Been going for 30 years. It's a health center, residential, with 3 doctors and therapists, and we've got 36 bed space, and we've been doing this. And it's full all the time because we've been doing it for 30 years and became popular. Okay, but the story I want to tell you about Aenon is this man called Ahwat. He's Chinese. He's called Ahwat. And he's a contractor. He's a builder. When we went to Aenon, it was jungle. And that's what Ahwat built. Some of the buildings Ahwat built. That's a health center. That's the staff quarters and the school and the doctor's quarters and so forth. And when we went there, it was jungle. It was on top of a hill. And we went to town, and we asked the people, everyone we met, who is the best builder in town? And they said, Ahwat. So we sought him out, and when we found him, we said we were interested in building something. And he said, I've given up my job. I'm not a builder anymore. And he was a depressed man. So we said, why? What's happened? And he said, a friend of mine got cancer. I tried to help him. I brought him all the way to China for therapy. It didn't work, and he's just died. And I've disbanded my workers, and I'm not doing this anymore. So we said, what? We're going to build a health center. Oh, we can treat lifestyle diseases, but we also address cancer. And his eyes lighted up. And he said, I'll help you. But we said, you've got to win the tender. You've got to be the cheapest. But there were many other contractors who said, oh, you're on a hill. There are no roads there. It's muddy. It's slippery. We can't do it. It's very expensive and so forth. But Ahwat said to us, yeah, I'll be the cheapest. And when we opened the tenders, he was the cheapest. Now, Ahwat, remember, a depressed man. When he learned that he had won the contract, he was up there on that hill at 6:30 before the sun rose. He had a mission. His ACC fired. His amygdala calmed down. And he built this whole place from roads to the health center, which has got 36 bed space, staff quarters and everything, including the water tank and the dormitory, in slightly more than a year. Okay. So that's what happens to us when our ACC fires, when the hope and optimism circuit fires. Now, why am I telling you these things in relation to meditation? Because meditation affects those parts of the brain which are important to you. Okay? I'm going to show you in detail. I think I'm going to run out of time if I tell you too many stories, but I think you've got the drift. Okay? All right. So, meditation. Eastern meditation and derivatives. They are Christian hybrids. In other words, Christian meditation, which calls themselves Christian, like Lectio Divina, which is basically Catholic, they have merged themselves with Eastern styles and offer to you as a new kind of meditation. Okay? So that is derivatives, Eastern and Western, you may say. And then there are the scientific kind of meditation called mindfulness. You would have heard probably about mindfulness. It is offered in most therapeutical settings, in hospitals now. If you want to be a therapist, you've got to take this module on mindfulness. Okay? In fact, this is going back 6 years. A doctor from Ayers Rock, right in the middle of Australia, called me and said, can I have your material, your PowerPoints? I said, why? And he said, because they're introducing mindfulness in my kids' school. And I thought to myself, in the middle of Australia? How did it get there? But then it dawned on me. The moment something like mindfulness is accepted in your school education department centrally, or your hospital or health authorities centrally, it gets into everywhere in your country. So he wanted it because it had been accepted in the school curriculum. So that is the scientific part of it. And then there's biblical meditation on that side. So I'm going to draw for you to understand how they operate, okay? Now, Buddha Pill is the name of a book written by two psychologists. They first wanted to call the book From Monster to Buddha. In other words, meditation is so good it turns monsters into enlightened people. But then as they investigated meditation, Eastern meditation, yoga, and so forth, they found that it didn't quite work every time. So they said, we better call it Buddha Pill, because some pills work sometimes and sometimes it doesn't work. So they call it Buddha Pill, okay? And in Buddha Pill, they quoted this, a mantra. If you were to repeat a mantra, and it can be said to be a Sanskrit mantra or a sacred mantra, you can repeat Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, or Om, which is a sacred mantra of the East, You can repeat any word often enough. It does the same thing to your brain. So it's the repetition, not the word. It can be a Christian phrase from the Bible. It doesn't matter. Okay? So it's the repetition that does something to your brain. All right. Now, when I was doing Zen, and this is sitting cross-legged, emptying your mind, I was taught to meditate on nothing. And how do you meditate on nothing? You count your breath in cycles of 10. Breath is nothing. Or you're meditating on a riddle. What is the sound of one hand clapping? Anything? Nothing. So that's how you empty your brain. You empty your mind. And when so you get to nothing, okay? Now the question is, then can nothing be dangerous? Yes, it can be. It depends on how it affects your brain and how it affects your mind. Okay? All right. Now, the first thing that happens to you as you maybe meditate on a flickering candle, or as in Zen, your breath, what happens to you is your brain, which normally has more beta quick waves. For example, now you're listening to me. You're wondering if I'm telling you all the truth. You're salvaging all your previous data in your brain and comparing it with what I'm saying. You're fast wave beta. But then as you go into mantras, the waves slow down to pre-sleep. Now, before you sleep, at one moment you can be at the beach, another moment you can be at work. You drift. That's a slower wave. But in deeper meditation, it gets even slower. That's sleep wave. All right? And meditators love it because it is very relaxing. And that's one place, natural things. Now, I'm not saying that the slower waves are risky. No. They are natural. But they're offering this to you to bring you to a place where they want you to go. Okay, and where is that? Okay, so slow waves, pre-sleep, deep sleep waves. Now, this is Brown's University researching on these sleep waves. It says this: when alpha, which is slow waves, pre-sleep waves, oscillations are prominent, your sensory inputs tend to be minimized. Okay? Neuroscientists at Brown's University are doing research on how the brain achieves optimal inattention. It makes your attention big, more significant inattention. The Brown researchers hope that teaching people how to harness the power to ignore by creating an alpha wave, a sleep wave, through mindfulness. So when people offer you mindfulness because you're stressed, they're trying to give you more sleep waves. Now, that's natural. Okay? Now, is that dangerous? Not yet. All right. Here is from the Bible a quote about sleep, okay? It says in Psalms 119, "My eyes anticipate the night watches, that I may meditate on your word." And some people use this to justify that you should have sleep waves. The night watches, that I may meditate on your word. But you look at what Martin Luther said about this verse. Martin Luther says, "I wake up early, I keep guard as in a military watch at night." The night watch is to be alert. So don't be led into thinking that sleep waves are good for meditation. Meditation is to keep you alert. So a Christian pastor, however, has said the best time to enjoy prayer and meditation is when we are relaxed and calm. Is that true or false? I'll offer that for you to think about. Okay? All right. Now the amygdala. What was the amygdala? Stress, right? That part at the back of the brain that's responsible for stress, for anxiety, for depression. What about that part? And this research says this. Well, I won't read everything, but I'll just tell you about how they tested the amygdala in relation to meditation, Eastern meditation. What they did was, they showed the meditators pictures of frightful pictures, neutral pictures, calming pictures. And they recorded their heart rate and their responses. Then they got them to meditate. And after meditation, they showed them the same pictures. And they found that where they were frightened or alerted to be fearful, that calmed down. Those neutral ones were more calm. And the calm ones were just tranquil. So what happened? They calmed them to a point where they should be excited, they were not. So if you were overly stressed, it works for you. Calming your amygdala is good for you. But if you're normal, it may calm you to a point where it's so passive, you are not even addressing the things that need to be addressed in your life. Okay? All right, so this is what happened there. Now, this psychiatrist, David Brandel, he's also researching on meditation. He says, some people use mindfulness strategies to avoid critical thinking tasks. I've worked with clients who, instead of rationally thinking through a career challenge or ethical dilemma within the office, within the business, prefer to disconnect from their challenges and retreat into a meditative mindset. The meditative mindset calms you so much that when there is a moral challenge or an ethical dilemma, you retreat from it. You're overly calm. Okay. Now, I'll tell you this. I was an anxious young man. That's why I started meditating. Okay? And I found out that the greatest meditator is a man called Milarepa, a Tibetan. He would meditate for weeks until he had to be fed and had to be bathed. He was calm, but for Christians, we are to address the dilemmas, the ethical challenges, the moral challenges of our society, our community. If you are so calm like Milarepa, you're no earthly good. That's what I'm trying to say. Right? And it was good for me because I was overly anxious. And I discovered that I was so passive as a Taoist, Buddhist, and Zen meditator. After I became Christian and I saw who Christ is and how he addressed the challenges of our life, and I began to say to myself, I've been overly calmed. I've been shortchanged. Okay. They give you calmness and tranquility without giving. I'll show you something else. I need to get there before I say it. Okay, now what are we talking about here? Dopamine. You like dopamine. Everybody loves dopamine, right? We are addicted to dopamine. But for meditators, your brain secretes dopamine, secretes 68% more dopamine for you. That's why people are addicted. So you begin to be addicted to what? Sleep waves, a calmed amygdala. And this addiction brings you into deeper and deeper meditation. Now, so far, it sounds quite benign. Calm, sleep wave, dopamine. We get dopamine all the time. Is it dangerous? They're getting you there. All right. Default mode network. Okay, I'll just cover this very quickly. This is that network of yours which works all the time and you don't seem to be able to stop it. And if you thought negatively, oh, I'm no good, people hate me, I'll never get out of this, I'll be the same tomorrow, that's default mode network. Okay? And what happens is this. another psychological science paper of another author team led by Brunel found that when the participants physically discarded a representation of their thoughts, such as writing by paper them down on a piece of paper. So they wrote down their negative thoughts and crushed it and threw it away. And that helped them with their default mode network to discard their problems. But when you do it as a meditation, you may also discard the positives. That's what he's saying. You are at risk. So it doesn't quite work. Now, this is the part I want to get you to. Meditation deactivates your ACC. What is your ACC? What was it responsible for? Love. Not just romantic love, but unconditional love. It's your will and the differentiation between right and wrong. Now, what they found was this. that picture there of the scan of the skull. You see M? You see there's a zero line, okay? A zero line. And M means meditator. It's below the zero. The ACC is deactivated. For a control group which is not doing meditation, the ACC is up above the zero line. So, meditation deactivates the ACC, and you cannot afford the ACC to be deactivated. And this is what they say, the researchers. Meditators compared to control groups who are not meditating showed reduced activity in the anterior cingulate cortex, the ACC, during meditation. Okay, so all those tranquility, dopamine, sleep waves, so tranquil, so beautiful, so natural, leads you to this one, deactivation of your ACC. Now, if you have a reduced level of will, you have a reduced level of differentiating what's right and wrong, then you're in danger. And there's more. There's a lot more. So, just to get us into the right frame of mind, that's A, when your ACC is up and your amygdala is down. That's what you want, right? Love, reality, your will, choosing right from wrong is up, and you're calm. Your amygdala is down. That's what you want, A. Right? B is when your amygdala is up, it suppresses your ACC. That's when you're depressed, you're anxious, and you're stressed. That's B. Now, Eastern meditation deactivates the ACC. So your ACC is down, but you've got sleep waves, you're calm, your amygdala is calmed, and you've got dopamine, you're addicted to it. So, this is Eastern meditation. This is A, and this is B. Which one do you want? Most people are doing this to get calm, but what do they lose? They lose that sense of the ability to grow, to fire the ACC, to be stronger in love. I'll tell you a story to make this significant. Let's say your pastor says to you, the young people, hey, young people, let's go and visit the old folks' home. And the young people say, I've just done that. Was it? meditation, okay? 3 talks. Can you hear me? Nope. Okay, we're going to do 3 talks. And this talk is about how wonderfully we are made, how it's going to be subverted by Eastern meditation. And the second talk is going to emphasize more the dangers of it. But the third talk is also emphasizing how dangerous it is. But I think most of you are not doing Eastern meditation. What you want to do is biblical meditation. So instead of doing a third talk on how dangerous this is, I'm going to do a third talk on Sunday, the last talk on Sunday, on biblical meditation. It's a practicum. And I'm going to try to get you all to meditate as in Psalms 19, King David in meditation, okay? And to show you what he was trying to do, or what he did achieve, actually, and get us to do it so that we can learn to meditate like King David. All right? I don't know how you think, but I'll do this talk, I'll do the second talk on Sunday, and I'll check with you if you want to hear more of the dangers, or do you want to do a practicum, a 1-hour practicum on King David's Psalm 19. Okay? All right. Okay, so what I want to emphasize is this. We want to do biblical meditation to accentuate, to raise our sense of love, of true love, and to strengthen it over time by doing a King David kind of meditation. All right? And that's practical. All right. So here I'm in Germany telling you about this seesaw. I do that everywhere I go, and people get to feel a sense of how it should be done. Okay, yoga nidra, a kind of yoga, it reduces your blood flow to the prefrontal cortex. You get less blood flow. And it is like when you've eaten too much and your blood flows down to your tummy. And you're so in a state of stupor. All right, that's yoga nidra. It helps you to relax. Now, this story, Jill Bolt Taylor, neuroscientist. She was exercising, I think on a treadmill, and suddenly she had a stroke. And as she suffered that stroke, as she physically deteriorated, she felt that her body was in a million little pieces. And this million little pieces were merging with the wall and with the environment. And that's oneness, okay? And she was a believer of the East, a meditator. Now, she got, interviewed on Oprah Winfrey, and they say the brain is where you feel at one with the universe. And she felt at one with the universe because her whole entire being was merging with the wall, merging with the environment. It was a stroke, a massive stroke that caused her to get that feeling. Now, how the meditation, I'm going to emphasize how it affects the brain, and then it affects your mind and your perception of who you are. Okay? All right. All right, Jordan Grafman. He's a neuroscientist, director of brain injury research of Institute of Chicago. And he says this, the frontal lobes are the most, now frontal lobe is what you have in front of your brain. That's where the ACC is. The frontal lobes are the most evolved areas of the human brain and help control and make sense of the perceptual input we get from the world. Further investigation revealed that damage to a specific area of the brain, known as the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, was linked to markedly increased mysticism. When the frontal lobe's inhibitory control functions are suppressed, a door of perception can open, increasing the chances of mystical experiences. So, the frontal lobe, for damage, people with damaged frontal lobes, they are more receptive. Because their control functions of the frontal lobe are gone, they are open to mystical experiences. Now, when, like in yoga nidra, you get less blood flow, and your ACC is down, part of your frontal lobe, you are open to more mystical experiences. Now, if you check online, at the most common phrase of what is affected in meditation, you will see this. During meditation, the frontal cortex tends to go offline. In other words, all of us have a healthy frontal lobe. But in meditation, you take it offline. You take it so much offline, it is as if you have had brain injury. Like Gilbert Taylor. Like what Jordan Grafman was saying. You're taking your precious frontal lobe offline. You're switching it off. Like your airplane mode, when you travel, switch it off. You're switching off your frontal lobe. Okay? And Andrew Newberg, he's one of the foremost researchers on meditation. He says this: the results from this study might also suggest that meditation-based practices affect beliefs and experiences through a frontal parietal network. Now, what he's saying is this: yes, the frontal lobe is affected, but it affects another part of your brain called the parietal. Now, what is the parietal? The parietal is what tells you where you are in three-dimensional space. For example, this gentleman, he knows he's sitting in the third row, and if there's a fire here, he knows the exit is there. But if he loses his sense of three-dimensional space, and there's a fire, he wouldn't know where to go. He loses a sense of his body shape, where he is in relation to the whole room. Okay, so Newberg says, when the frontal lobe goes down, your parietal also goes down. You lose that sense of where you are. Not only that, you don't have a sense of where you are, not only where you are, but you are part of everything. Your sense of body shape is gone. You are aware, but you are not positioned. You are everything. Okay? Now, he goes on to say, the results of this study might also suggest that meditation-based practices affects and experiences through a frontal parietal network, okay? And he says, and if you look at the orientation area, which is the parietal, it goes dramatically down in its activity during meditation. It is mostly yellow and just a little bit of red, which means it's deactivated compared to what you see in the normal waking state. So this is that out-of-the-body experiences. You're one with the universe, one with everything around you. You have no wholeness. Okay, we think this is part of what is associated with somebody losing that sense of self. They feel at one with God, at one with their spiritual mantra, whatever it is they are looking at. Now, this is what the Hindus say, it's nirvana. The Buddha calls it Buddhahood. Now, if you're meditating now with Christian hybrid Eastern meditation, your pastor, I'm sure you don't do it, but a pastor could say to you, now you're in the presence of God. Because you have that neural phenomena. You feel it. And a suggestion needs to be suggested of what this really is. Or what this is suggested to be. Not that what it really is, but what it is suggested to be. So nirvana is one. Buddhahood is one. Oneness with God is one. In the presence of God is one. Okay? So I hope you can see that those seemingly benign things that happen to your brain can lead you to very serious neurophenomena where the suggestion becomes very powerful. Now, the suggestion can become even more powerful when another part of your brain goes down. Now, I want to show you this icon. Have you seen this icon before? It is when you're meditating, as you start meditating, you're a drop of water. Whole, complete, yourself. But when your parietal goes down, that drop of water merges with the ocean. And you're not yourself anymore. You're part of everything. You're part of the cosmic ocean. So this is the icon of Eastern meditation, where you lose your sense of self. Okay. There are other investigative researchers, Iverson and Newberg. Sometimes meditation results in profound changes in consciousness, leading individuals into trance-type states of self-hypnosis or mystical states. Self-hypnosis. Now, what's hypnosis? It's the ability to pass a suggestion, which may not be real, to you, and you to accept it. Okay, that's hypnosis. So, meditation is hypnotic. Now, this is Columbia University telling you how hypnosis works. There are 2 slides, but I'll just run through it very quickly, okay? What Columbia University is saying about hypnosis and how it works. There are 2 parts in your frontal lobe. One is your ACC. Your ACC is responsible for your will. We've heard that. But there's another part called the LFC, also in the front. That's responsible for your sense of reality. Your will, ACC, and the LFC, reality. Now, when you're meditating, you get less blood flow. Your frontal lobe is offline. Your ACC is down. And what Columbia University is saying, when either your ACC is down or LFC is down, either your will is down or your sense of reality is down, just one of them go down, you're open to suggestion. So, when the parietal goes down and you feel at one with the universe, then the hypnotic suggestion comes in. This is nirvana. You've reached nirvana. Or you reach Buddhahood. Or in the presence of God. One neurophenomena, many suggestions. So we can be open to the ease because it comes right into your mind. Okay? And this is in 1840. There's a man called James Braid. And I'll just tell you the story. This is way back, and he was in Persia, and he reported to his friends in the West. He says in Persia, they could look at the tip of their nose and go into a trance, and go into self-hypnosis. Okay? So all right, so I'm going to not conclude, but draw a conclusion. They induce you with meditation. They starve your brain of blood. And they close out the frontal lobe. They close down the ACC. And then the amygdala is calmed. You got more sleep waves. Your cerebral frontal cortex is also deactivated. There's more dopamine, which means you're addicted. And these are kind of normal, but abnormal in the sense that you get all of this at the same time. And then your mind is manipulated. Your frontal lobe goes offline. Your ACC is deactivated. That's hypnosis. You're open to suggestion. And the parietal is deactivated. You get this amazing neural phenomena. You're not yourself. You're part of the universe. And then the hypnotic suggestion comes in, whatever they want to say to you. You're defenseless. So this is the icon of meditation. You were initially a drop of water. It goes into and then you blend into everything. And there are all kinds of Eastern words for it. Okay? 2 be 1. Non-dual. All right, non-dual means there's you, there's me, there's everybody else. But in that moment, we are we. We are one. Why? Because we are all one with the universe. That is what's being suggested. And they are able to suggest that by manipulating the brain. Now, there's something called pantheism. Right? Pan means all. Theism is God. And when you get that parietal going down, then you're one with everything and everything is one with you. All is God. Or panentheism with the word N in pantheism. And pan is all, N is within,
Theism is God. It means God is in all. God, the person, is in all. Now, I'm sure you are a lot of Seventh-day Adventists here. When Dr. Kellogg started that book called, what was that book called? Living Temple. He was beginning to suggest that God is in all. All. And Ellen White fought it and called it pantheism. Yeah. And she defeated that idea in late 1800s. No, 1903. So we've had an experience with that. And as a meditator for 20 years, I began to research the science of it, and I read her writings. And she knew, and she had no experience with the East, with pantheism. She had never been there, never read anything about it. But she knew so much about it. And so as I read what she wrote about it, I was amazed because she knew more about it than I did. Yeah. And when she defeated it, she said that was the alpha of apostasy. The Omega will come. And I tremble for my people. Something greater, something more deceptive will come. And I tremble for my people. And I think it comes from the outside. Okay? And it tries to knock on our door. And so Sunday, I'll go deeper into that, where it is coming from. And I'm going to show you how dangerous it really is. Okay, so meditation, most meditators want to look for a portal. All right, the portal means what? That intersection, the interconnection with God, man with God. All right, meditators are very imaginative. They want some kind of portal. Hinduism, Bali, has these gates, and these are the portals of man and God. So we are all looking for God. And it is a good way for me, having gone through this, to address and engage Eastern meditators, because I could show them the science of it. Okay? So the question is, are we going to look at and understand that it's a neural phenomena, that it's not a divine encounter? And the question is, what is biblical meditation? All right. What are we looking for? We are all looking for God. And I want to engage meditators, and on was it next week? 2 weeks from now, we're engaging a group of 20 in South Sydney, non-SDAs. And so it's very exciting for us to talk about that we are all looking for God. It's a common what do you call this? We are on the same page to begin with, and then to differentiate what is true and what's false. Now, the portals in the Bible where man and God are one, or trying to be one, is all over the Bible. All right, there is Israel in the wilderness. Their camp layout, the sanctuary is in the middle. The tents are all around, right, physically, trying to get them to be one with God. Then there's God's Shekinah glory, His presence with man. That's a portal. Now, what's a portal? That's us, and that's God, right? And when we are finding a portal, it's where God and us meet. And the more it intersects, the more it crosses with each other, and if it's totally crossed, right, then we are truly one. But okay, online again. So, there are so many instances in the Bible of where man meets God. And that's what
we're looking for. We are looking for a true encounter, not a false encounter. The East gives you such a false encounter that it is frighteningly real in sensory terms. Okay? But it is not real in biblical terms. That's why I'm offering to do a practicum on King David's Psalms 19 meditation and see how and why it is true in biblical terms. An encounter, an experience that's true in biblical terms. All right, Jacob's night of wrestling. Oh, that was an encounter that was true in biblical terms. Calvary, God and man, is a portal, a meditative portal. Okay? Now, I want to skip that because this is for somebody else. The bridegroom, the bride, the wedding, the consummation at the time of the end. That's a portal. Yeah? That's why we are studying prophecy, because that's where it leads us. Yeah? And so, the meditation portals, what's so important for us is the true versus the false. And on Sunday, I'm offering to do a practicum. I'll check with you on Sunday after the first talk whether you want to do a practicum or you want to listen to more material. Now, prophecy are continuous portals, man and God. Continuous from Eden. What did God say to the serpent? My seed, Jesus Christ, will come. And he will bruise your head, serpent. So God said it, and it happened. So, and all the intervening events are to address how it happened. Now, the first talk we want to give on tomorrow on meditation is Daniel 9's 70-week prophecy. This is what happened. God said to the serpent, my son will come, the seed of this woman, and he will bruise your head, and you will only bruise his heel. And when it happened, 490 years before it happened, the clock started to tick. And when it happened, the people who should know did not know. And Jesus said to them in Matthew 24, he said to the disciples and to the people listening, see ye not all these things? How is it that you don't see? And then he referred, a few verses later in Matthew 24:15, he referred to the book of Daniel. If you had known, you would know the time when I offer myself as the Messiah. So, what I'm trying to say is this. Prophecy is a continuous portal, if you understand it. There's no silence from God. A lot of people say, 400 years before Jesus came, there was silence from God. No, if you had known the prophecy of this 490 years, there was no silence. In fact, Jesus said, see ye not all these things? So, there is no silence. Prophecy is a continuous portal, and we want to show that to you. Now, it's not, we're going to, tomorrow's talk on prophecy, Daniel 9, the 70th week, is going to be structured and defined as 10 messages of God's love. It's not going to say, oh, it started here, and we count the years, and I'm sure you've gone through that. All right, that's very structural. When it happened, AD 34 is when it ended, and so forth. It is like that, a bit of that. But the emphasis is, it's 10 messages of God's love. Why is God talking about that prophecy in that language, and in that language of love? It is a Jubilee language. All right, so it is an icebreaker for people who don't want to study prophecy. All right? Particularly my Sunday friends. Why? Because they say, when it happens, I'll know. Okay? But when they begin to study with us, and we work at Aenon, and what we do is, I get to speak to the people, about 36 of them, from all walks of life, and a lot of them are Christians. And we present a scroll. All right? We tell them, you want to know about prophecy? We'll show you what prophecy looks like. And we present them a scroll of prophecy, a chronological scroll. 1 millimeter is 1 year. And there's 7,000 years. So it's a 7-meter scroll. But then there are pictures and drawing. So it becomes a 9-meter scroll. And so we present to them in the morning at 9:30. And after seeing the scroll, we'll say, we'll show you prophecy, the 70-week, a love prophecy at 1:40 after lunch. And most of them, in fact, sometimes all of them, sometimes 34 Buddhists would come and listen to prophecies. Okay? So this is that scroll. So that scroll ends with the new heavens and new earth. It begins with Eden. And when we open this for them, they get very excited because it's so long. They bring out their cameras, they look at it, and when we lay it down on the floor and suggest that they should come and take a closer look, what happens is, you can lay it down on the floor. And the 490-year prophecy, Daniel's 70 weeks, is right there. Okay? And we say that's what we're going to study with you. But it's a different emphasis. It's just not about time, it's about the love of God. And so this is an icebreaker for people who don't like prophecy because they say it's hard to understand, we'll know when it happens, it's frightening, it's doomsday. But we open the subject with an icebreaker. So tomorrow, we're going to hear more about this. And I don't know if some of you have, in fact, seen this scroll before. Have you all? No? I'm going to leave one behind for you. All right? And you can take a closer look at it. So tomorrow we will talk about Daniel 9, 70-week prophecy. And then we'll talk more about meditation on Sunday. All right? Let's end with a short prayer, shall we? All right, let's bow our heads. Our Father who's in heaven, as Amos had said, God, you will do nothing. You will do everything that your servants may know what to expect. And so we are so blessed as a church to know what's next. And you've made us a people for this time. A people who knows and looks forward to the time when Jesus will come and gather us all into that oneness which he had with you, our Father, from everlasting to everlasting. But today, we've come to listen to your counsel, to your voice, that we may truly be blended in, be part of your work, and be blessed with that knowledge and that empowers us all. So we pray for this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you very much. Hope to see you all tomorrow.